Hello and welcome to Geekverse Sidequest, your weekly stop for video game news, reviews, and more here on the Geekverse Podcast Network. I'm your host, Adam Marcaster, Dylan Musk, and I have with me the living vampire, Travis Snell. How are you doing tonight?
It's Morbin time, you know. I gotta say that because, who knows? We're never gonna get probably a movie sequel.
It's true.
Who knows the next time Morbius is gonna be in a video game? So the Morbin time thing's definitely been played out, but I gotta say it because who knows when we'll get to say it again? You know.
I don't know, man. Back in, 2019, he joined Ultimate Alliance. So I feel like he's having quite a renaissance in the video game world here. Well, I don't know. I shouldn't say renaissance because he was never relevant back in the day, but he's having a birth.
He's the most relevant he's ever been.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess it's time for another time when we get into a discussion for another time, maybe at the end. But I'm just like, I don't know when I will see him next, though. You know, I don't think there's many group games on the horizon.
Yeah.
So
Midnight Suns was like, oh, maybe he would actually be in that, and lo and behold, he finally did. But yeah, today we're going to talk about the newest DLC for Midnight Suns, but we're going to build up to that first. We're talking about a lot of Nintendo stuff today, which I'm very excited about. We got a big gameplay dump for Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, next level games. There's been some rumors there, and then rumors for some Donkey Kong stuff, so I'm excited to talk about all that. And then we're also going to talk about E3 getting canceled, you could say officially. But yeah, just a couple.
Quickle?
I like Quickle. That's actually a fun
not
word,
actually
though.
a bad thing.
Quickle shout-outs here. I'm going to go with that. A Quickle shout-outs here. The Arcane retrospective, of course, that's going hard right now. We are 4 episodes into that. And then we finally caught up now on the recording with the actual release schedule. So this week it's actually going to be a bit late, probably Sunday. Is when we're recording. I'm probably going to put up the episode right away, if not Monday. So that's the next episode of that, Dishonored Death of the Outsider. And then at the end of the month, you're going to be joining us for Prey. So I'm excited for you to jump into that game.
Yeah, I am. Luckily, the schedule's cleared, so I think I might start dipping my toes into that this weekend because we got Easter weekend coming up. I got 4 days, so I think I might. What's the playtime on that? Because it's just a story game, right? Like you move.
It is. There's also this DLC for it called Moon Crash, which is like a roguelike mode, and that could take you longer because it's not as linear. So if you have time for that, it'd be great if you played it, but that also costs extra if you don't want to do that and you just want to play through it on Game Pass. That's fine. But yeah, I think I'm gonna say 12 to 18 hours if you with the way you play games. I think not like if you do a couple side quest things, but mostly just kind of going through with the main quests and stuff like that. I think it'll probably be a nice breezy 15 hours ish or something like that.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to jump on there. I'm excited to literally crack open my first Arcane game because all of them have interested me, but always something comes up. So I'm happy for Games Pass. And this is the one out of all the games, maybe other than Deathloop, which I still plan on. Maybe this will kick me in the butt. But other than Deathloop, this is the one from what their catalog is that I was always the most interested in. I remember seeing that trailer at E3, be like, man, this looks great. And I've always heard good things, so I'm excited to be on that one. So yeah, it'll be a good time, and it's a good week with all this Mario news we got because we got Mario this week. So it's almost fitting that we got a lot of Nintendo news on this episode too. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah, Mario, the movie's coming out. We're reviewing that. I guess Wednesday night if you're tuning in live on YouTube. If not, it'll be up Thursday morning. And then I also did a Mario ranking, so go back and check that out because that was a lot of fun to do.
That was very ambitious when I saw the numbers. Which, granted, I've never put. You've probably played more than me, but I was like, I guess I should sit down and look at what I've played because over my life I never thought about it. But from that that 5 to 12 age, I imagine there's just so I just even think about Game Boy ones where I'm like, right, I owned that one. What was that one where you could play as Birdo for the first time ever? That's the one I remember.
In a 2D platformer.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you could play as Birdo. She was one of the characters.
What the hell? I didn't even know that. I have not played that one.
Maybe I'm wrong, but maybe I feel like the's something to do with that. But yeah, I was like, man, I haven't even thought.
If you factor in party and sports and stuff like that, it really inflates the number. So
it adds up real fast. Yeah,
it does.
So
almost too quick.
Yeah, check that out.
I think that's pretty much it on the show. It's anything else from you that you wanted to mention here?
No, I was gonna say mini newscast, but I'll talk to you guys tomorrow because that's building up. We have all these trailers. That'll be fun, and then it's very blotchy because the weekend we don't really know what's going on. At some point, me, Taylor, and Kirkland will cover Star Wars Celebration. We don't know because it's one of those things where everyone's having Easter on a different day. So that is look at that timing. Yeah. So we'll get to talk about the 3 movies they announced that are never going to happen. But I'm just excited for Mario. Mario's my most anticipated movie of the year. So this is nice. I know we got a lot of stuff coming out. We got Dune and Marvel stuff and DC stuff, but it's this is. I'm very excited. I think it's going to be a very fun night for all of us. So
sweet. Good stuff. Okay, let's get right into it then. So last week there was a Nintendo Direct for Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. It was about, I think, 15 minutes, 18 minutes, I think, of just gameplay, essentially like a gameplay sequence, not so much a trailer, but more of like here's a demo of some of the new stuff, and here's what, like, playing the game for a few minutes is going to look like. Quick, I guess, backstory for both of us would be that Breath of the Wild, you played it kind of at launch, and I think it's safe to say you liked the game, you thought it was really good, but you are not quite on that masterpiece, greatest game of all time level that everyone else seems to be on. Is that a good way to put it?
Yeah, I think the best way that I always say, because my review is always about how kind of overrated it was, but for me, I think it's like one of the best Zelda games, which is saying a lot because they have a bunch of them. And even if someone wanted to make the argument for even best Nintendo games, I could get there. So I don't love it as much as other people, but I know its esteem. Like, I respect that esteem, and I had a ton of time. Like, we'll talk about the gameplay here, but I had tons of fun actually playing it. It's so funny at the time though. Horizon West was out, and I was like, oh, I'd rather be playing that, and now who knows? But no, I've still very much enjoyed that first game. I don't think I actually ever beat it, but I was thinking about that when I was watching this, because I think I got like within that 2 to 3 hour mark, and I was like, oh, I should bust it up, and I'm like, well, that's on the Wii U. I don't know if I want to go. I don't know if I want to be busting that out, but I still got my Wii U kicking around, so maybe one day I'll, but
Yeah, and then for me, I played it a bit later on. It was actually a big early pandemic game for me, and it was great for that, where I was like, I'm not seeing anyone. I'm just going to play Zelda for like a month straight and just completely zone out. So I went in like kind of with all these expectations of like, wow, okay, this game's going to be something special. Everyone loves it, and I totally agree. I think it is an amazing game. I really had a great time with it, but I also think for me it was a game that is very flawed in a lot of ways, and that's where I'm excited in some ways that, okay, sequelized version of it, like what can we do to iterate on some of those things that I felt like were pretty weak in that first one. But overall, just the exploration and whatnot, just an exceptional game all around. In terms of Tears of the Kingdom, we actually have not seen a whole lot yet, so it was good to get this, because so far we had a couple trailers that were pretty vague, and did not really, they weren't really selling me a whole lot on the game. But yeah, I guess just before we dive into the specifics, what did you think of this showcase here? Because I know you're kind of on the boat that you're probably not picking this game up at launch. Did this sway you at all? Are you still feeling the same way?
It didn't sway me because I just know how it's not massive in the sense of like an El Ring or like a Witcher, but it is still quite those. I feel like I don't know what the story is of the first one if you were just to blow past everything, but that's not the point of that game, right? You don't like those are those games where you don't want to just go point A, point B, and you can't even like in the early on cases. I feel like they don't give you a bunch of markers to go. Like they'll give you some stuff, but it doesn't feel like it's very forced. So you got to do the story and stuff like that. Yeah. So it's purely that. But I think this made me go, okay, I know at some point I'm going to be paying this and picking up, even if it's boring from someone, because there's a lot of stuff that they showed here that I just thought was really cool and really fun looking. Nice. I was like, this is really creative, and it's good too, because I was with you where I wasn't surprised that they weren't showing off much, because I get they want to kind of hold the mystique back, because they're on a pivot, right? Because the first game got to surprise people, but now people know that world, they know the art style, they know everything, they know the horse mechanics, so they know all these things, and that's where it's like, how much do you want to show that is a revelation before, right? Do you want to get those people when you get it in their hand? So stuff like the fuse, was it fusion or just fuse? I can't remember. Fuse, yeah. It was just fuse, yeah. Stuff like that. There's part of me that thought, oh, that would have been cool if you didn't know that, but also the main point, if you're promoting the game right away, to me that's something different. And just the amount of, I don't know how many combinations you could do, but even just the ones I showed, just really cool. Like I got a big kick out of the shield with like the puff mushroom thing. I was like, that's awesome. So that, to me, that even that aspect was fun of like, okay, how much could I do? And that's something that I don't want to see any more of. That's, I'm like, okay, I saw about 5 different items. I want to see what else you could put together. So I really like that. And I do like this kind of sky world mechanic thing of, I think when you get up there, and it's so funny when I was watching this, I never put these together when they do these demos. It felt very much like Dora the Explorer, because it was like, Gwen was watching me and the guy goes, what's that? She's like, oh, what is that? Oh, look over there. What do you think that is? And it literally, he's talking like a kid show thing. So it's funny, but I think it's a little wonky of how you get up to the sky world. You gotta wait for this rock to crash and jump.
Well, that's
on
one
it.
way. That's one way, right? The way he said is like, you also part of this building, which we'll talk about. You can build planes and things like that. So you could use
Okay.
those to fly up, and then I'm sure there's like maybe a really high mountain is close to a lower island. You can do something there. So I think there will be different ways, but I think they showed maybe the most boring and like basic way.
Okay, good.
in
Then I
this
missed
reveal.
that. Yeah, and no, there's just little stuff like when he was up on one of those sky things and he got hit and he went automatically to like a free fall glide and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Like I think there's gonna be fun aspects of that world being introduced. So honestly, I thought this was like a great showing. This was something that there's lots of games I want to play, but this did make it go, okay, I am gonna pick this up at some point because all the new stuff they showed is stuff that I thought looked really fun. And that's all you can do with a sequel, right? Is you gotta, keep the basics, but you want to introduce some more fun mechanics, something unique, and just the fuse alone. I was like, okay. I think that I'm waiting to see in the gameplay how the ascend is like. I feel like
Yeah.
it was just like, and you can go. It was weird. They're like, you'll have your limitations, but anything with a ceiling you can go through. So I'm like, okay, what is it? I'm sure there's gonna be like some that have like boards or like rocks that you can't go under. So that's one where it's like, I don't know how exciting that's going to be and how much I would use that, but maybe there's going to be tons of climbing where it will come in handy. So other than that, the majority of stuff, I think it was a good showing and it got me more invested and more excited to play it at some point down the line. So
That's good. Yeah, I think it definitely got me more excited. I'm already going to be picking something up for sure. I just I wonder though, like I think if I wasn't so much doing the side quest thing and I wasn't as invested, I mean, it took me 3 years to get to Breath of the Wild. That was pretty slow considering the prestige that game had. I think I might still be in the same boat for Tears of the Kingdom, but the world's different now. And I'm, doing side quests and I got to talk about all the big relevant games and I want to as well. So I'm definitely going to be picking this up, but I'm going away like the day after this thing comes out. So I'm not going to be playing it for about a month afterwards. So I'll have to wait, but I'm okay with that. I don't need to play Zelda things at launch. I'm not a huge fan in that way. So yeah, let's talk about some of these specifics. So the fuse is definitely a big one, where the pretty much like early on in the direct, he's showing, okay, he picks up a stick, he's attacking an enemy, the weapon breaks, and which is a very divisive thing from Breath of the Wild. A lot of people don't like the weapon durability. Very quickly, where do you stand on that? Are you pro or against? For or against the weapon durability?
like as far as it breaking and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm for. I like that.
You
I
like
like
it?
that
Okay.
aspect
Yeah.
of the game because especially like I don't know. They even show this clip. Most time I feel like that would happen in Breath of the Wild for not all the time, but when he hit the stick and then you killed the enemy and he like shot out 3 more. So I kind of liked that because up until you get the sword and stuff like that, it just I don't know feels a bit more dangerous. I think a bit more. Are you on that side?
Yeah, I definitely am on the 4 side. I really enjoyed it. I think it just creates a lot of crazy hectic scenarios. It got you to use all the different weapons. And like even like what is it like the last hit is like a super strong thing and it's like so satisfying just swing at someone with a big sword and just shatters into them. Like it was great. So I really enjoyed that. I think maybe the one point of frustration for me sometimes was just like inventory space and like managing the inventory.
That's fair. Yeah.
Could get a bit frustrating, which also happened with the food and whatnot too. But yeah, it's so Fuse is definitely a multi-tool and one of the solutions that it's looking to solve. Not that it was necessarily a problem, but once again, was divisive. Is that so? Yeah, if your weapon's about to break or is breaking, you can fuse it with something in the environment. They showed a rock, but I'm sure you can pick up trees and different sticks, leaves, all sorts of different things, whatever you can find. Really, fuse it to your weapon, and that will kind of give it artificial durability for the remainder of that fight and whatnot. So unclear if you can like load up your backpack full of sticks that have rocks fused on them, or if you could only fuse to the thing that's like currently equipped and you can't like put that back in your inventory. I don't know all the what's going on there, but I think this is a really great solution because it's very creative, it's very fun, and the game was already very much built about like environmental interaction and like these all these systems that are at play, and you can toy with them however you want. You can get super creative or you can just play the game normally if you want. And I think this is just a great way to get even more creative with the combat system. So very excited to see what kind of like crazier things you can do, because obviously putting a rock on a stick is like probably the level 1 version of that, right? It's the most basic thing, but taking like a huge great sword and putting a bunch of rocks on that could be super cool too in a completely different way, right?
But I even liked the rock and the stick because it was just like a regular size stick. And then this is what I love, where you have the aspect of, okay, like we talked about the durability and stuff like that. And I like it's almost like realistic, where it's like, oh, you got to find anything and fight. But then you're just getting a regular size stick and there's like massive boulder on it. And
It's
that's why I was like,
goofy.
there's something like cartoony, like you said, goofy that I enjoy. Where it's like, okay, that's kind of what I want. I almost wouldn't want just like this little, like I'm not playing Prey here. Like I want them to be a bit more over the top. So I did like the visuals of the stick with this massive rock. So
Yeah, and then a part of this too is that you can fuse what would be normally ingredients or crafting materials into like special effects for your weapons. So they showed in like using the bow and arrow, you can get, I forget what the ingredients are, but you get something, you can use it, and then it makes your arrow to a homing arrow or an ice arrow. And I'm sure you get fire, all the different elements and all sorts of different stuff. And I think that's fantastic too, because to take all these things that are going to still be ingredients, I assume cooking is still in this game, though I don't think we actually have seen it yet. It's like, okay, well, now everything
I feel like if
that's
they took
used,
that out, that'd be very controversial in my opinion.
yeah,
'Cause
and I
feel
liked
the
it. Once
cooking.
again, it was a good system. I liked it a lot, and I think with just more iteration on it, make it even better is cool. But yeah, now everything that was previously only used in cooking can now also be used in this fusion system. So that's really cool that now these things that were already pretty interesting have even more layers tacked onto them. So that's great. And then it's fun too that there's certain enemies that will seem like they use certain powers. And so you saw an enemy who essentially like fused their weapon with this giant wooden board and was using that, and it created like this wind gust, as you mentioned, knocked you off the cliff or off the sky island back down to the ground below. So I'm curious to see too just what freaky weird enemies just get created by this system, and hopefully a pretty like immersive way of them just like picking up whatever their surroundings are. And if you throw a tree at an enemy, maybe they could just equip it to themselves and hit you back with it, and that would be really cool if you get some memorable combat scenarios like that. And then kind of close to that, but is I guess a different ability, is what they call Ultra Hand, which is a goofy name. But this is what this is a separate but similar ability where you can combine like different logs and rocks and fans and motors and things like this to create cars, boats, planes, like all three of them, which is something they'd shown in one of the trailers. They showed Link on this weird looking car, and people were like, I feel like you can make that. Like, that does not look like it was designed very well, but it's because you can just make it out of random scraps and stuff like that. So this looks really interesting. I cannot wait to see the crazy, like I just can't wait to see the Reddit posts of people making these intense cars and boats and things like that, because I'm sure people are going to get super creative, and hopefully the game allows you to make these like gargantuan vehicles and stuff like that, because I think that would be really fun. And maybe if you can make like a mobile base and and get some storage on there. I don't know how that element of it will work, but I'm really into that. I think that'll be a lot of fun. And hopefully, because when he made the boat, I'm like, I don't know, in the time it took to make this boat, like, why don't you just swim across this little river here? But I think for something like the car or the plane, it probably has more use. And then hopefully there's probably like bigger things to do with the water as well that'll give you incentive to make boats and whatnot. So is that something you think you'll play with a whole lot, that fusion, that Ultra Hand mechanic? Because I feel like you're not really like a level editor, like builder kind of guy in games like this.
Yeah, I was when I had infinite amount of times.
Yeah, for sure.
Like I used to be loving being WWE Superstar and have my own locker room, be like, hey, I'm gonna put my poster here, my boots go there. And nowadays, like in Midnight Suns, stuff like I don't touch a single customized thing there. So with that, this obviously it's a little bit different because it can have an in-game function. So if it is something that, like you said, you could just swim across, but if it's something that, whether it's that or the car just makes it a little bit faster, even that I enjoy. I think I do it a couple times. I think it's just how time consuming is it? Because that's the thing, like you said, if I just jump in the water, just walk as faster, and the idea of, I'm in a car is not something I need, I'll get over it quick. My only question was, it's just a stupid question, but when he made the boat and he made like the 3 logs together, is there a reason why he had to make it like look like an actual boat, or did they just do that for us?
I mean, Breath of the Wild had a pretty solid physics system, and I think it's probably for that reasons too, where you can't just like, it has to be functional, it can't just be a total freak of nature. It's not going to like artificially make it usable. Like, you have to make it decent, I guess. So I don't know much about like boat physics and why he had to make it look like that, but I feel like to some extent, like the triangle shape I know is like a pretty strong shape in architecture and whatnot, so maybe that's what he was doing there.
So that's another thing too, where because he had at first he had the 3 logs they put in the water and like no, you got to make it more boat like, and he pulls them back like Dylan was saying, and that's where to me if it is a thing where you got to rearrange stuff just a little bit to make it work, that's where I'd be like okay, I don't got time for that. Maybe I'll play the game at a time where I do have time, but I could see myself looking at something and go I don't really want to make this boat. I'll do this another time, or I'm gonna go glide down to it. That's where.
I think for you, because you famously hate the horse mechanics in Breath of the Wild, fuck it, now you can just make a car. And I mean, the first game did have DLC that added like a motorbike you could use, so I don't know if that will be a thing as well, but it seems like you'll have options outside and you didn't even really need a horse in Breath of the Wild.
No.
Like, you could play the game totally fine without it, but it seems like you'll have options now, so that's good for you specifically.
I'll definitely be a car guy, or if I could build my own horse, then maybe it'll be a bit better. But
like a mechanical horse.
yeah. The only thing that took me out too is just like when he was on the boat, they like had a battery logo for when it was running. I wish it's just the tiniest thing. I wish it just shows something else to show that power level, because it was just odd to have like an actual physical battery just there in Zelda, and it's like all right.
Yeah, I guess it's because even like in Breath of the Wild, like you had the Sheikah Slate, and it was like this is just a tablet, right?
It was
supposed to be like the Wii U gamepad. It was supposed to be like the Switch, and so like they incorporated like tech into the first game in a weird way.
You're
so
right. Yeah.
I see it fits, but you're right that it is still a bit jarring. Odd. I think for me too, I like the boats and cars seem cool. For some reason I'm worried about the planes and stuff like that. I just feel like that will not control well. So I hope they can prove me wrong there. I'm sure they got it, pretty polished because it's a Zelda game. But I don't know. It looked like I would not be able to do that. So hopefully that's like nice and good, because obviously with all these islands and stuff, I hope I'm going to be flying around all the time. My other question with that too is like, okay, when he left that little river there in his boat, and he presumably goes off and spends 50 hours fucking around everywhere else on the map, if you come back, like, are those things you built still there? Can you still use them? Because I'm guessing at some point, like, I'm going to use a car and then I'm going to get to a mountain or a thin little like ridge or something like that, and I won't be able to drive my car through. It's just not good terrain for it. So hopefully like the car still exists in the world and I can come back and use it at different points, and it's not just like, oh, the tools you need to make a car are always in the same spot, disassembled, and you just have to go back there and build it again. I think that would ruin the illusion a bit of it feeling like this kind of genuine inspiration that you're in the environment and like, oh, I'm going to create a car now of my surroundings. So hopefully that's figured out in a big way.
Yeah, I feel like you'll have it depending like how far you go. I think there'll be a limit, and
or maybe one car, one boat, one plane, or something like that.
Maybe
I want to make a hybrid too. Like, do you think you can make a car, boat, plane, like a hovercraft?
That'd be great.
Kind of
Then
thing? I don't see why not if the physics
drive off
is right.
a cliff and then get into it. Yeah, I think you could
That'd
do
be
it.
cool.
But yeah, I feel like there'd be like a certain like you have this many feet away from a car, and then it would disappear. And it might be a long amount of feet, but if it's kind of like you left it at the completely other side of the map, and for some reason a mission takes you all the way on the other side, I could see you going back there, and that car is nowhere to be found. But or like after a long like save or load. So I hope not, but I could. It's a tough ask, I feel.
And then for that section too, when they were done showing all that car stuff, they said there's still so much more we can show you, but we're going to leave it there for now. And then they had Link was standing there, and there was like a plot of land that very much looked like the base of a house, and there was like a couple walls and even like a little sign. So I'm guessing that means you're going to be able to like fully build your own houses in this game, shacks and different stuff like that, which is really cool because obviously there was a player home in the first game, but it was more like you bought the house and then you bought like a bed, you bought weapon racks and different things, and those get put in there automatically. You wouldn't even choose where they were in the house. It was just like one set thing you'd keep investing money into. But this looks like a cool alternative to that, and hopefully there's a lot to it, because once again, I mentioned there's like a little plot there. Like, do you have to buy that plot, or can you just build a house anywhere you want? Is there just like set plots around the map and you can build there? So a lot of questions still, but I'm excited to also build houses. I think that'll be pretty fun, and like build a little garage, put your car in there. Like, come on, that seems great. I can't wait to mess around with that system. I think that's the thing that was like most exciting to me for sure from this trailer. Moving on, you mentioned Ascend, and I don't know if there's much more to say about it. I think it's just maybe part of this is that you're going to be exploring what is in some ways the same world, and maybe, you know, going up a same mountain that you just went up. For me, 3 years ago, for most people, 6 years ago when the game came out, would be a bit tedious to go up like the same mountain over and over again. So here's a potential solution. You can quickly climb up mountains and whatnot, and I'm sure they're going to use that in dungeons in creative ways and whatnot, or the shrines, maybe not dungeons. I shouldn't say that word. When I say that, people will get heated and think, oh, where are the dungeons at? I didn't remember them saying that. So yeah, that's a thing. I'm sure it'll be tied into the Sky Islands in some way, although it doesn't look like you can just fly up to a Sky Island with that ability, because it has to be like a confined space, I guess. So that's a thing. I guess part of this too, how they got up to the island was like, okay, like essentially a meteor crashed down to the ground. You can hop on it and then use a rewind ability. So the rewind kind of makes a lot of sense for what was in the first game of like building up momentum on things and freezing things in place. Rewind seems like a natural place to go. So once again, I'm sure there's going to be some cool mechanics with that, and particularly in the shrines, or you can do some cool things with that. So, and I wonder too, like, do you think that could be used to, let's say, undo like durability on a weapon? Like, let's say you have a big sword and you do this big combat sequence, you knock it down to 10% health. Could you like rewind that sword and get it to heal up again? Or even yourself in some way, heal yourself? Is that like maybe a way that they could infuse the rewind mechanic into other things?
I would like that, but I feel like they won't go that route, because I wonder if that takes out some of the challenge. You know, if you're kind of, it's almost like an insta health recover. The weapons, I think I could see you finding a way, because it's like a kind of like the bowler, like it's a different object. But I don't think they do that with the health bar. I think that just especially because like people said that, so like the last one was one of the more challenging Zelda games, right? And I think that was the aspect. So if you can kind of just boost yourself back up, so weapons maybe, but I think the health bar, that would stay relatively the same.
Right. And then why would you fuse a rock to your sword if you could just get your sword back to full health whenever you needed to? So I'm sure there's like a balance thing there. There's cooldowns and whatnot, but yeah, I don't know if that would be a good solution. But yeah, and then the Sky Islands, which is something we've kind of known what this game is going to be about from the other trailers, but they showed it off a little bit more here. I'm into it. I think it's a good way to... Okay, a lot of the ground map is going to be maybe the same as Breath of the Wild, so here's a way that we can create a whole bunch of new areas that you can go to. And I like that they're kind of confined spaces that they can almost feel like mini dungeons, or like Eventide Island was a really cool element, or a really cool section in Breath of the Wild, where it's like this isolated island, you build up from there. So I feel like the Sky Island's going to have a similar thing to that, where it's like, okay, here's just an isolated area, and they can really design like specific enemy encounters or puzzles and whatnot around them. So I'm into it. I think it's going to be cool. Some of them seem pretty large. Other ones will probably be kind of smaller and whatnot. So cool. Seems neat.
Yeah, no, I think because I spoke about it in the opening, I think the point that I go on is what you said, where even a lot of this, when he was walking around, I was like, this, I'm not saying it looks, oh, that's identical, I remember that spot, but it just looks, the ground stuff looks very, very similar. It just looks like this is like a bigger DLC. So I think the air can really differentiate it as far as, okay, this feels like a, you know, no pun intended, a whole new world. So
yeah, he said this is not the same world. It's changed in many ways. If we talked about all those changes, we'd run out of time. So check them out when the game releases. So he pretty much just like said, yeah, it's different, and then just completely brushed it under the rug.
Yeah.
So that's something that will remain to be seen at launch. I am very curious because I, once again, played the game in the last 3 years. So I feel like large swaths of the map will feel quite samey if I'm doing them again. I think it'll take away some of the surprise of like, okay, well, I know it's over that hill. And if they're saying this, but then it's just like, oh, but then there's like some new rocks over here and like a new ruin over here, I don't think that'll be enough. Like, I hope there's some terraforming done in some way. And like, I just want to be surprised again and shocked. And I did do a pretty good job exploring that map. So I feel like I'm going to need a bit more than minimal changes. So I don't know if I'm going to believe them yet. I'm going to remain to be seen. But I think one thing with this is that it seems like there's probably not going to be any new biomes. Like, I don't think they're doing anything that drastic. So I'm curious because I don't know, I can't even think of like another AAA open world game that has ever used the same map for a sequel, right? So like maybe I'm just thinking that'll suck if I have to do it again, but like maybe it won't. Like, I don't know. I can't say like a Fallout's never done the Elder Scroll. Like they've never dipped back and like, okay, here's the same map again with like new functions and new combat and stuff like that, and maybe some new shrines. So yeah, once again, very curious to see how much it truly is changed there, because that could be I think the thing that makes this game just a all right, like a good solid sequel to me, or make it feel like a wholly new experience that I can fall in love with again and maybe be a game of the year contender and all that kind of thing for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think the good benefit for people like not yourself and not game critics are there's a lot of people that haven't played it as soon as you have, right? So I think there's enough time where you almost feel like you've probably forgotten that world. So even if it is, there's some similarities. People might look at that as a positive. They're returning to this land they really like.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and then I don't want to get into a full discussion of like things we'd want to see from this game. I think I they didn't talk anything at all about what there's the divine beasts in the game. There's like those four kind of dungeons you could say, but I don't think anyone really liked those. They was not very good. I didn't like them either, and I think the shrines as well. I think people did like the shrines. I did not like the shrines. I felt like it was quantity over quality, and there was like maybe 15 good shrines and then like 100 just shit ones and like a lot of repeated ones and ones that's like you solve like one tiny little puzzle and then you're done. And it's like, well, what was up with that? And then between the shrines and the divine beasts, they all had the exact same aesthetic. So I think that also made it drag on for me. So I hope there's a bit more iteration there in terms of, I don't know if I necessarily need like a full dungeons in the way that they've been in old Zelda games, but just better versions of divine beasts, shrines that are more interesting, and just like more variety in the visual style of all those things. Give them maybe even just like 4 or 5 different kind of palette swaps, almost like different art styles, and then that would at least add some variety there. So that's maybe something I'd like to see that was not touched on at all here, but otherwise looks like a solid sequel. A lot of things that they're iterating on in cool ways, a lot of new things in there, and yeah, I'm excited to check it out, which is in just over a month. May 12th is when this thing comes out, so pretty soon.
Excited for all those reviews, those good reviews that I'm going to get, because I think it's going to score
It's on your
pretty
draft,
high.
Yeah. Okay, with that, let's take our first break, and we'll be right back. Okay, we are back. There has been some Nintendo rumors circling recently, which is kind of always happening. And I don't know what tier you'd want to put these ones in, but we're going to talk about them because it's fun. I don't know how viable these things actually are, but let's talk about this one first. So Next Level Games is most known for doing the Mario Strikers trilogy, working on Luigi's Mansion 2 and 3. They did Metroid Prime Federation Force on the 3DS. So they've been working with Nintendo for a long time. But just recently, I think it was like 2 years ago, they got bought by Nintendo. So now they are officially part of Nintendo in a first-party capacity. And there's been some rumors on what they're working on right now, because obviously they released Mario Strikers Battle League last year, within the last 12 months. So not that long ago, but of course, what are they working on next? So one potential thing is maybe an F-Zero GX remaster. This is the GameCube F-Zero. Or potentially Luigi's Mansion 4, or maybe a Luigi's Mansion spinoff, which is already a spinoff, so I don't know what that would mean, but let's just call it Luigi's Mansion 4 for the sake of this conversation here. But, I mean, talking about the F-Zero thing first, that seems like a weird thing for me. Like, I don't know. I don't know if they would want Next Level Games to do that remaster when they have never done an F-Zero thing before. It feels like you want to put that studio on bigger and better things than like a remaster, which is probably just like slight graphics upgrades. Like, I don't know. I don't think that game's aged too poorly by any means. GameCube is like still, those games generally look pretty decent, but they just did the Metroid Prime remaster for the first game. So I don't know. Sticking about the F-Zero thing first, like, do you think there's any reason why Next Level would do that? Do you want to see that? Do you care about that at all?
The only reason I would see them doing that is maybe that they just haven't decided what is the next big game they want them to do. So if it was Luigi's Mansion or something else, okay, well, we don't know what. So how about let's try this out? Because F-Zero is this franchise that has been pretty dormant for a long time,
Yeah,
Capcom
at
was
least like
always
15
around.
years since last entry. Yeah.
And I think it's one of those that always pops up like, when are we getting that? And I think the part I do buy from it is a remaster, something like that. Maybe could just see if there's any interest there. But at the same point, I'm trying to use logic when Nintendo doesn't really. That makes it sound bad. I just feel like Nintendo's very unpredictable with what they do. They sold a game remaster of Mario games and then took away the discs so no one could ever
Yeah.
buy them again. And you go, why? Why would you do that? So they could do a remaster and it could sell well, and Nintendo be like, oh, that's cool. I'm happy that game sold well, and never do anything with F-Zero again. So I can't really predict that the same way with Xbox and PlayStation, how they think. So like I said, that's my only thing is maybe if they don't have another project lined up for them yet, it's like, well, work on this. But I don't think it's, I don't think this part is true, and I don't think anything that's going to be new F-Zeros. Unfortunately, I think that's where it'll happen at some point in your and mine life, but I just don't know when, because I feel like there's other franchises, like even Star Fox is going to get like a run again before F-Zero and stuff like that,
Yeah. So. F-Zero's in a weird spot where, obviously it's been dormant for a long time. They have like a couple F-Zero courses in Mario Kart, and I feel like to Nintendo, like, oh yeah, that's our support for F-Zero right there. Yeah. You can use the Blue Falcon and stuff like that. I mean, I think I would almost prefer if they just bring F-Zero GX, not even a remaster, just port the game over, like they, because Super Mario Sunshine, when that was in the 3D All Stars collection, was not a remaster in any way. They just grab and slap that game, and then they had to change the controls a little bit because the Joy-Cons don't have the like spring in them like the GameCube controller. Okay. So like for using Flood, like you can't get that same control. So they did like the most minor thing to it to change it because they had to, because of the controller not being as good as the GameCube controller in that way. So obviously the emulation tech is there and working on the Switch. So I don't know. To me, I think I would rather just see them port it to Switch. Make it $25 or something. They'd probably make it 60, but whatever. Hopefully it's like a lower price if it's just a port. And then see how that does. See if people are interested in that, and then go from there and decide if you want to make a new F-Zero game, or I even think, honestly, just double down on what's in Mario Kart. Do like a Mario Kart F-Zero DLC, where it's like, here, you pay $5, $10, and you get another 10 maps and like a couple characters from that game, and boom, the F-Zero fans are happy. They have something to chew on. And then Nintendo has to do the bare minimum, which is what they often do. So that like totally fits for me. And I think putting next level games on it just doesn't really make any sense to me. Like, yes, I guess they have some history with the GameCube specifically because they worked on games for that console, Mario Strikers, for example. So I guess they have some, that studio has some they know how to work with the GameCube, I guess, but it's, does that mean that they don't know how to port GameCube games to the Switch? That's kind of a different thing. So I just don't think that's a good use of their time. And Luigi's Mansion, let's talk about that now. So that makes more sense, right? Because Luigi's Mansion 3 sold like 12 million copies on the Switch. Insane amount. Fucking huge. Obviously the biggest in the trilogy there, and like just one of the biggest Switch games, which is something I kind of forget about. Like, it seems like a more low-key game because I think the series has been more low-key. But then like that was a huge game. So I think a sequel to that, once again, from a just strictly financial standpoint, makes a whole lot more sense to put next level games on that instead of, I mean, once again, maybe the F-Zero thing they could do really quickly. Maybe that's the only reason why, is like they could do it in 6 months, this whole remaster, and like a small part of the studio could work on it and get that easily out. Maybe that would be the one reason why they would do it. Otherwise, like, just go ahead with Luigi's Mansion. Sure, go ahead.
Well, and that's the thing you bring up the Luigi Mansion sales. That's why I don't think, with an F-Zero you're going to see anytime soon. Because I don't think that game would sell well. I think your idea of the port and stuff, that's the best route you can go. And if there's something cool, but I think if next Nintendo Direct, wherever they announce, hey, there's a full-on $60 new F-Zero game, I don't think it does that well. I don't think it's there. Where Luigi's Mansion, it's funny, like I feel like we do talk about it as a low-key franchise, but I feel like we should stop. Like, it to me is like, when I think of GameCube, I think of Melee and I think of Luigi's Mansion. Those are the two things that pop in my brain.
Those are the two launch titles too, right? Weren't they? Yeah. The first like few months,
Yeah, that's what pops in my head. I feel like those two games are usually, there's probably a couple others, but I feel like if you were to say, hey, name the top 5 GameCube games like that you can think of, not best or anything, just like what springs to mind. Because like, remember Luigi's Mansion was in McDonald's all the time and stuff like that. And then I don't know how, but I feel like the 3DS one did like pretty good, like above whatever it did. Yeah, maybe you got some sales there, but like still, and I remember there's just like a hunger for that, and then 3 just blew up. So I feel like it's not really a low-key franchise. I feel like it's one of their bigger titles because I think
6.4 million for Darkman, which is like, for 3DS title, pretty good.
That's pretty impressive.
Right? And that was made by Next Level Games, same studio. So
yeah. So to me, it's like a no-duh decision. I feel like it's also, I don't know. I know they've done 3 games, but I just feel like there's kind of unlimited potential with that world of you can put them in a new castle, put them in a new mansion, create new ghosts, create new
Hmm.
stories, and there you go. You can check out me and Taylor's review. Me and Taylor are massive fans of the game. We are, I won't say massively disappointed, but a little bit disappointed. So hopefully, if they do a 4th one, and it's like little stuff, it just didn't feel like it had the the exact spooky magic of that very
Hmm.
first game, where it did lean almost a bit more into the horrorness of it. So I hope it's a little less action adventure, but I feel like as a 4th to happen, it's a no-brainer. Whether
Yeah.
this report is true or not, we're gonna get a 4th. I would think, because that first one came out kind of the launch of Switch, right? Or
Luigi's
around,
Mansion
I guess not
3.
the launch. Maybe was it the
Maybe
was
within
it
the first 2
after the
years.
first?
It was
Yeah,
2019. Yeah, so within the first 2 years. Yeah.
it's when a lot. It was in between. It was Alliance and Luigi's Mansion, because I remember that's why I bought a Switch, was for
Right.
Luigi's Mansion. So I think it was within the first 2 years. So that's 2019. So I guess 4 years. So a little off, but I feel like before the Switch's life cycle, if they do a switch over, I'm not sure if that's going to happen. We'll get a 4th, and I'll still begin.
They should call that the next console, the Switch Over.
the
That would
Switch over.
be. I like that. That'd be good. Instead of Switch
Yeah.
2, Switch Pro, Switch U, just call it the Switch Over.
I guess I feel like I wonder if they just give a new console a new name, because the Wii U kind of scared them, right? You know, like, do they want to do that again?
But the Switch is a. I guess you're right. The Wii did
right?
have.
The Wii was huge,
Yeah,
right? But
yeah, they got to differentiate it somehow. But
yeah, and maybe my hope is that this will happen, and they're gonna try and time. They won't time it, but I hope they just. I hope Mario's huge, and we can get like a double feature of a Luigi's Mansion movie and a Luigi's game at the same time. Like, I would love something synergy like that, because that movie, I need that to happen. But this game,
Yeah.
I think it's a foregone conclusion to happen. I'd say with it'll be announced within the next 5 years. That's what I'll at least say.
yeah, no, I think that for sure. Just based on those sales, I'm trying to think about next. Like,
And it
'cause
reviewed
if
pretty
we-
well too. It's not like
Yeah, no, it was.
yeah.
People love that game for sure,
Yeah.
and I liked it enough. I definitely have some issues with like some of the puzzle design in it with it, but like
Yeah.
it was a beautiful game. I loved like
Oh,
the
yeah.
physics and stuff going on there. I liked Luigi. That was a fun.
It's a
little
fun
twist up
world
on the
too,
formula.
you know?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
hotel was cool. So, yeah, I think. I don't know. I think we could definitely see it. And I was just thinking about like, hey, what other if Next Level did Mario Strikers? Obviously, they did the first one, so it was a good pairing for give them Battle League. But like, even if we look at those kinds of games, like what else is there to do? Like Sluggers is the only Sluggers, and I guess the one basketball game that did exist, Hoops on the DS. Those are the only like sports games that haven't had a new version
Yeah.
on
And
the
there's
Switch.
rumors about Sluggers, but I don't think it's with Next Level. I think it's someone else that it's rumored to
Yeah.
be happening with. So
Yeah, so I don't know if they would just want to make them like a dedicated sports studio. I think Strikers was more like, okay, they did the first two, so let's get them to do the third one
Yeah.
as well. That made a bit more sense in that way.
And
That
I
was
don't
the
think-
first game released under them being part of Nintendo. So
yeah, and I don't think there's enough juice on the bone right now for a Strikers 4. To me, that's like another.
that
that's
game
like
I don't
a-
think sold very well.
Oh, did it not? No, that sucks. So I feel like that is like a good down the line 10 years from now. But yeah, it's a bummer it didn't sell well. Great game. Very
Yeah,
fun
it's hard to
time, but
find numbers for it, which is probably not a good.
That's
sign.
usually a sign. That's usually
Maybe
when
it's not
a
been
math-
long enough, but yeah, I don't think people really cared about that game beyond us, really.
Yeah, damn. You know.
Unfortunately.
Oh, but we always got that third one, and now great.
We got the
messed up game.
trilogy.
Yeah,
We had the
exactly.
trilogy.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so with that, we'll talk about this as well. There's another rumor going around, a separate rumor. Has been talking about a Donkey Kong game that is potentially in development. Couple word about this is that it would be from the Mario Odyssey team. Specifically, it's kind of hard to keep track of some of the Nintendo studios because they don't have separate names like Sony's studios do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, looking at this, so from the Odyssey team, the other big rumor here is that it's like potentially like an open world game. So we'll talk about what that means exactly. But I think it is crazy that there has not been a new Donkey Kong game on the Switch yet, and we're 6 years into this thing. And I was curious because I'm like, man, this is like not a good console for this character. I just like went on the eShop and searched it, and like, okay, Tropical Freeze is the one that they have, and they put it on sale all the time. They're like, that's the Donkey Kong that they have to advertise. And there's like a couple like Donkey Kong like arcade things that are like $5, just
Yeah.
whatever random little things. And then on Nintendo Switch Online, there's like Donkey Kong Country and whatnot on there. But like, there has not been a new Donkey Kong game on the Switch, which I think is like just totally fucked up. Like, Donkey Kong's sometimes done dirty, and I think in one way that is certainly a reason. Now, if he's been getting the treatment because the Odyssey team, who's like, one of the big Nintendo teams is making a Donkey Kong game. That's pretty cool, and I hope we get it. And I feel like, at least looking at the marketing for the Mario movie, we'll have the answer to this soon. Like, Donkey Kong is a big part of that movie, and not just like, I don't know, maybe he's in like a 15-minute sequence or something like that, but it seems to me like they're really, making, Donkey Kong. We love Donkey Kong. He's part of the
all over the
history
marketing
of Mario and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. He's all over the marketing against Seth Rogen as well. So
yeah, true. And like, okay, you get like Fire Donkey Kong in the trailer. Like, we've never seen that before. Is that like a hint because the next Donkey Kong game has a Fire Donkey Kong mode in it or something like that?
Kong Family's in those trailers as well too. Like, they're literally on the Mario Kart track and stuff. So
yeah, which the first step they need to do for bringing Donkey Kong back is get fucking Donkey Kong 64 on Nintendo Switch Online, please.
I would
the
love
fact that's
that.
not on there is so sad. I mean, it's developed by Rare, so it's kind of a weird case, but I think so is Banjo, right? And that is on Nintendo Switch Online. So make it happen, please. That would be an easy thing. Even if they did that this week, just like, you love the movie, play Donkey Kong 64 today. Like, come on, give it to me. I still have it on my 64, of course, but like, damn, I would love to, jump back into that on the Switch. But yeah, what do you think about? First of all, what do you think of the validity of this? Is that the Odyssey team has been toiling away working on a Donkey Kong thing for a few years? Because once again, Odyssey was a launch year title game. It was not the launch title; that was Breath of the Wild, but it came out the same year as the Switch launch. So it's been a long time, and I can't remember if they did the like Bowser's Fury DLC thing. I don't know if that was the Odyssey team or someone else, but either way, that was maybe a more smaller project. But like, once again, been a while for that team toiling away over there.
Oh gosh, you saying that, I just remember I still got to play Odyssey. I've never played Odyssey, and I think that came out. Yeah, that came out when I didn't have the Switch, and it's just always keeps passing me by. And I've played every other Mario game, like all the other ones in the past, so I gotta get back on it. So maybe this weekend after Mario might inspire me to make a purchase. But those games are still $60-$70.
Well, don't forget about those vouchers. I don't know if you heard about this, but there's like this thing you can buy, like a voucher that's essentially will give you, I think, $30 off overall between two games. So you buy a voucher, you can get two Nintendo like first party games, then you'll save essentially like $30, I think, on that Canadian between the two purchases. So I mean, you might as well get it because you're going to use the voucher on something else in the future.
Yeah.
So anyway, do that.
This rumor, it all sounds good, but it's the two ways where it's like it sounds so good that this makes complete sense of why they're doing it, but also sounds so good of that's where someone could make a great rumor and a great just kind of, what I've heard. It's one of those so good it's real, but also so good to be true. I feel like I've heard nothing but great things about Odyssey. I don't know. I think that one, it's a Mario game, so I'm sure it sell relatively well. But I think what people liked, and at least what I saw, was it kind of felt like a different scope for the Mario game. I guess you did have, oh gosh, why am I forgetting of the space one? Galaxy, right?
Galaxy,
yeah. That's a scope, but in a much different sense. When I look at Odyssey and I hear you say, hey, that team is making a Donkey Kong game, right away that gets me excited. Like, if I think about what they did there and what you could do with the different characters, even if you're just playing as Donkey Kong, but just the world, the different characters, the places you could go, and this whole site, because there's part of it that said that it was like partially like open world, perhaps, right? That was in this reporting too. It was like
for the Donkey Kong thing,
yeah. So I would love, because that's where you talk about 64, that kind of has like an open world-ish type of feel to it. I would love something akin back to that. So I'm gonna maybe go against my better judgment and say that I believe this rumor, and I think it's time. It's definitely time, because Tropical Freeze was a long time ago, and that was a good game. It was a hard game. It was a challenging game, but like, I have a soft spot for Donkey Kong because I feel like me and my friend that lived across the street at the time, Nick, just like Donkey Kong, just country. I feel like we played that for, you probably a lot of the time, just days of just like, you lose, okay, you go, you lose, like, so I have
hard game as well.
Hard game as well. So that the enemies, the setting, the music, I have such a soft spot, and I feel like it's time for Donkey Kong. He's been in Mario Party and Smash. I feel like it's time for him to be like a main player again, and I'm not saying he hasn't been a main player, but I think he should be like Mario, where he's getting multiple games throughout, not fucking drumming games, like multiple games where the Mario, like every 5 years there's going to be something. And I feel like Donkey Kong should be that, and maybe this could be that. So I'm going to say I believe majority of this. Maybe there's a few things wrong, but it sounds good to me as far as like a rumor and what I would like to see happen.
I'm with you, man. I've always felt like Donkey Kong was kind of underserviced, and you get some weird things. Like there was like a Jungle Beat, right, which is on the GameCube, so you got some weird spin-offs and things like that. But even in Smash, man, like I've always been like, how did it take 3 Smash games to even get Diddy Kong in there? And then how did it take another 2 Smash games to get a third character? Like there should be at least like 6 Donkey Kong characters in Smash. Like he should be up there. He should be like rivaling Fire Emblem, you know, like in terms of the representation there. But yeah, I would love to see this. I mean, yeah, really my Donkey Kong history, like I've messed around with some of the platformers, but it really is Donkey Kong 64 for me. That is the game that I loved so much as a kid, and I even came back to it when I was older, and like, okay, I still really love this. Yes, it's a very collectathon thing. I think a lot of people compare it to Banjo, and they're like, oh, Banjo, better game and whatnot. But I obviously have the nostalgia for Donkey Kong 64, and I love that game. I love all the different playable characters and whatnot. And yeah, to your point, like it is like some of those different areas you go to, and once again I have played it somewhat recently, are pretty expansive, and I feel like it's not too far away between just like having areas that connect those different things without having a loading zone, and it being an open world experience, and like swinging around on vines and whatnot would be just like a really quick way to move around the world and whatnot. And I don't think you need it to be Breath of the Wild in terms of scale, like in terms of the raw size of it. I think you probably want it to be more condensed, and just more going on in each particular area and stuff like that. But even just like truly a successor to Donkey Kong 64, I think is definitely a good time for it. I think people would be into it. And I think especially if it was from the Odyssey team, I'm sure there would be some fresh new mechanics in there, whether it is that fire Donkey Kong mode or something else. I would love to see, once again, like a roster of characters. In Donkey Kong 64, there was, like 5 characters. I don't know if they'll bring back Lanky Kong and Chunky Kong, those weirdos. They definitely have Diddy Kong still in there. But I'd be fine if they created a couple new ones for this game,
That's what I was going to say. New ones for sure.
I want Lanky Kong. I love them, but like I get it. Those characters are like meaningless in Nintendo's history at this point because they've been, only in one game, and it was so long ago now. But
and like they shouldn't be, and that's why again I don't know how Nintendo feels about this movie coming out. As far as like I know how they feel about, but like in my opinion, like even Nintendo World at Universal, like I don't know, like what is the Donkey Kong presence there, And I feel like if Nintendo, and that's the thing, like if you ever want to build onto that world, if you do Mario and Donkey Kong and you want to do that as a separate thing, because to me, I know probably, and they might be right, I think people are right, is like you'd probably argue Zelda's the next biggest Nintendo thing, and I think now it is.
Or Pokemon, if you want to consider that Nintendo, but that's once again weirdly connected.
Yeah, if I'm talking just pure Nintendo, it's definitely Zelda, but I'm biased. It would be Donkey Kong for me because I love that monkey. But I think you have to build that world up, and that's right. Even if they're not playable, bring a lot of those characters back and have them in roles or levels and stuff like that. And same thing with the new ones. Yeah, but I think you're right. It would be Diddy and Dixie would be like locks, and then Donkey Kong. And it could honestly just be something like just those 3, and that'd be what they could do. But I feel like Donkey Kong has like a world plethora, and that's why I just wonder too if this game happens, this movie happens, if they ever expand on these parks, like Donkey Kong has like a plethora of characters you could create. Like you could, I just feel like I can see a Donkey Kong movie and you have all his family, like you can animate that stuff, when people get interested, it's like, well, there's also a game that's highlighting this family, like I would like to look at them as like Guardians of the Galaxy, but Donkey Kong, like because they are weird collective characters, right? When you look at Chunky, you look at Grandpa Kong or whatever the hell his name is, Cranky Kong? You look at them all together. It's
Candy Kong. Oh my god, back in the day I was like, whoo, what is going on with Candy Kong?
Like there's just, I feel like you can really do some fun stuff with the Donkey Kong world, and that's what I'd like more than just a platformer, because that could be fun, but you kind of know what you're gonna get. If you got an open world, I feel like you're kind of on a different level, and you have to put more characterization in the world and just the players.
I don't even know if we're just talking about the open world thing because that's kind of part of what the rumor is. But I really just want it back in any capacity. And I think just even a 64 successor could be cool with because once again, Odyssey did have that structure once again, where it was you go into these different kingdoms and each one of them has like a theme. And they, just because of like tech and stuff, a lot of them are just bigger than what you get in a 64 or a Galaxy or a Sunshine and stuff like that. Even Sunshine has like kind of a Delfino is a pretty open area and whatnot. So I think if you look at it that way, even just with the tech that we have now, even just that same style as 64, but with bigger areas and more areas and stuff like that, I think you have a good lineup there. Now, if you look at it that way, once again, Rare made that game, and they're obviously not with Nintendo anymore, so they wouldn't be making that. So, but I think that's totally fine. Have another different Nintendo team working on that specifically, or even just like the way Mario 3D Land is kind of a mixture of 3D Mario, but almost like a more 2D, like linear style to the level design. I feel like that would work great for Donkey Kong as well, and then you can get the co-op in there in a cool way. So I think there's still just so much potential right now, and I think people would buy the heck out of a Donkey Kong game, a new Donkey Kong game. So
we're ready.
I hope that part of their, I guess, plan with Donkey Kong is like, okay, we know this movie's coming out. He's a big part of it. Let's let the movie come out, and then the E3 time, not E3 anymore, but the E3 time, that direct. That's
Summer Game Fest time.
Exactly. A couple months after the movie comes out, boom, here's the new Donkey Kong game, and you love this character again. For the kids who didn't really play much Donkey Kong because there's not been a new game, here's the character, go buy his new game, that kind of thing, right?
See, that's what gets me excited, because now Gwen's starting to get to that age where, she loved watching me play Luigi's Mansion. Now she's at that age where, okay, she's starting to play games, and eventually I can get her to that. And that's what I'm excited for. And that's why I want these games. I hope, fingers crossed, Star Fox, my boy, one day makes a return better than what happened last time. But I would just love... I guess I'm not completely out of the bubble, but I just feel like my kids, other than Mario Party, don't have a known thing of Donkey Kong, right? And it's different, of course, they're not playing games, but I mean, like, even in general, I would just love Donkey Kong to kind of raise that level again when we were kids. As far as to me, if you looked at like the 4 pillars of them, it was always, to me, it was Mario, Star Fox, Zelda, like Link, Zelda, and then Donkey Kong. To me, it was always like, that's it. And so I would love Donkey Kong to get back to that point.
Definitely. All right, that was fun talking about Nintendo. It's been a bit since because I feel like the last few directs, like Kirkland has been really a Nintendo direct guy recently.
Yeah, Kirkland's been on a lot, I guess. Yeah.
So it was fun to do that discussion with you. Let's roll that right into because we just mentioned E3. So last week, Ubisoft, who was like, "We're going to be at E3 until we die," or whatever they said. They're like, "Actually, we're not going to do E3 this year." And then a few short days after that, the ESA officially announced that E3 2023 is canceled. And of course, they had that wording that's like, we'll be back bigger and stronger than ever. So we'll see about that. But yeah, I mean, this has been just the endless turmoil in the last few years of like E3 trying to figure out, well, one, what to do like during COVID times, how to adapt to the modern era, and like things like Sony dropping out and they don't want their press conference there anymore. So then like, okay, what does E3 do to pick up the pieces after that? And I think you've very much been on the boat of like E3's dead. Like it's not making a comeback. It's gone. And I think with this cancellation, like I don't see how they come back next year. I think this is probably it at this point. So I don't know if you ever threw down the Travis told you hashtag on this, but at least you've been clairvoyant on this one for sure.
Yeah, I guess I never did, because you know what? It held on a lot longer than I thought it was going to. But to me, it's kind of like, I know many people don't watch soap operas, but it's kind of like if someone dies and then they come back, but the big reveal, it's like their evil twin, and you're like, oh my God, you're not E3. And that's what this was. It just felt like from the get-go, this time around, not all the other times, because they're always hanging on, there's always events and stuff, but then Keeley he's popping his head up, and you and I have talked about this before, where I feel like there's times where we think Keeley's knocked out of the park, there's times where he's misstepped, but at the end of the day, he's still kind of, I don't think he's like perfect, and I don't think even Summer Games Fest, I think, is still messy, but he's doing it almost in a best of both worlds for him and the companies, where, hey, you don't have to spend a bunch of money to do something, but could you say you're part of Summer Games Fest? And they're like, sure, and they like do a cross promotion and stuff, so it's kind of a scratch my back, scratch yours, where
it gets them in the door for Game Awards too, which has a ton of viewership, and they probably down the road want their thing there, right?
And credit to Keeley, every year that viewership's going up, right? That's never been, and that's one thing that's good for Keeley, that we can sit here and be like, hey, this year's been better, this year had out too many ads, this year the pacing was off. But I feel like the way we talk about, hey, could the video game awards ever become like their Oscars, I feel like it's starting to become like every year people are talking about that, and there is so many outlets, just like video games just like movies that give out best picture, best video game. But if it won at the VGA, like that award show, that's the one people refer to, right? When we talk about Game of the Year now, it's Keeley's show. So I think for that type of stuff, Keeley did come in, he saw, and he even said that, which I thought was, I understood why he tweeted it. I thought it wasn't bad taste. Yeah, I thought it was a little like, I feel like just the the praising of E3 would have been good, but that whole like check out my thing. But at the end of the day, there was rumors that they had like a falling
sorry,
out.
I'll quick context for anyone who didn't see the tweet. Jeff Keighley, like E3 announced that, and then I forget if I don't know if it was a quote tweet or if he just tweeted something separately, but he's like. E3 had a lot of love for this. Spent many years doing this.
15 years,
but E3 it was not evolving to what the industry needed, and now I'm doing this thing, and it's whatever that. So that's more or less what he said, something to that effect.
Yeah, and it was one of these of like I kind of get it because like I said, the word was they kind of had a falling out, but at the same time, I was like just wait a day. Even then, you don't gotta like just say oh I loved E3. But so with E3, this I think. All the years have been like, it's done just because I could see the momentum kind of going away and Keighley was popping up and Keighley was smart. He's making all the right moves. So there you go. And I think that I was very surprised that this year they tried. And I remember it was about 3 years ago. This is when it was in big trouble. And it sucks for this new team that was running E3 or there was new leadership. Because I remember there's one year it got canceled. I don't know if it was because COVID or something. I think it was COVID. There was talks of them doing like a celebrity basketball game, like all the stuff where it's like, what are we doing here? And then COVID happened and then they did the online one, which was like, okay, you can kind of do this. And that was still like near the tail end of like Jeff hasn't fully taken over, but now it's happened. And then when they announced the in-person and right away Nintendo, Xbox and Sony said they weren't there, you lose the big three. And then, like other companies, Rockstar's not going to be there. It doesn't like they're not going there. There's other ones like Bethesda's not going to go there because they're a part of Xbox now. Yeah. So there was Ubisoft and Ubisoft, a bunch dropped out, but when I knew it was completely over is when Digital Devolver dropped out. And that's when I'm like, oh, like it's really over now because I thought they would have had a fun time of like even give them longer time to just put on this weird ass show. But even they were like, we're going to skip it this year. And that's where I almost like, I've always talked about these years, but I almost felt bad how it kind of went down. And I think this is now, we've had this conversation so many times, but I think this was it being dead. I think this year was kind of just a zombie. And that's what I was like. And it sucks because I still thought they were going to even go through with the event, but the fact that they just canceled it, I think that's almost worse than going through with it because you can't like, why would anyone agree to do that show? You're the show that you're the party that no one showed up for, You're no longer the cool kid around. And it sucks because we have all these memories, but at the same time, what my worry was about E3 that I think where I was on like almost Travis told you was years ago, I just said, hey, the other companies are just going to do their own thing. Right. I think Keighley's kind of format sometimes has issues, but at least I feel like there's going to be young gamers that grow up with Video Game Awards and Summer Game Fest. The same way we loved E3, there's still events. So I think that's where it's not as sad for me because I was like, oh, I don't want E3 to go away. I think they're not doing things right, but it's going to suck for the young generation. But I feel like now they have been replaced with something else. So not surprising. I was more surprised they tried and even now, next year, I don't think they say that, but I think they're trying to save face. I would be very surprised if you see anything E3, and I think it's the end of an era, which is sad. That's as we always say, this podcast started because of E3. We had a group chat, but that's when we're all talking about it. And Taylor's went through that idea, like, oh, we should do something like get together and put this on video and talk about it. It's like without E3, we may not be doing this thing, So it's
sometime in the future there'll be a podcast that only exists because the Game Awards. They would gather around the Game Awards and talk about it. Yeah, I don't feel the need to repeat anything you said because I pretty much agree with all of it. But I think what it comes down to, and this is going to be a bit of conjecture on my part because I don't know all the financials here, but just in terms of like to Keighley's point of them not evolving and the business model of what E3 was very much revolving around, okay, Microsoft's going to give us like $100,000, $200,000, whatever it was, $100,000 to be part of this and have their conference. And Sony, Nintendo, you factor all those together, okay, they can make a lot of money and they can do this thing and they can break it all together. But yeah, in like this modern era, like why would they want to spend all this money? Like you could put it in the marketing budget, but if their thing is going to get just as much viewership by Nintendo doing a live stream on YouTube, than the E3 thing, or like even maybe 75% as much viewership, maybe E3 would get a little bit more, but it's not enough to like be worth
justify $100,000.
Yeah, and then every year too, like E3 is losing a little bit of its reputation when it has these canceled shows, or it's changing, or like Sony's not there anymore, so it feels a little less prestigious and all that stuff. And then that way they can do more too in terms of like actually choosing their timeline of when they want to do this thing. I think it makes a lot of sense for Nintendo because they've already been doing directs for so long where it's a pre-recorded thing. But for someone like Xbox too, like they have their own like studio thing that they do all these broadcasts from multiple times a year, and so it almost doesn't make sense too of like, wait, why would we only do one showcase a year in the same weekend that everyone else is doing it when we can do 4 or 5 of our own in 1 year?
And it has to be June too. That's the
yeah,
tough thing. Like,
and
what
it
if your
costs
stuff is
us $200,000 to do this thing. So I think in the case of Keeley, okay, his events can get a lot of these. Sometimes he'll have a Sony partnership or an Xbox thing, but I don't think they're paying him all this money. Instead, he's like letting them be part of his event, and then the money comes in from all these marketing, like all the ads and stuff, and that's why there are so many ads, because that's how the business model works out. So it's just one of those things where E3 needed to evolve, and one of the ways that they tried to evolve was by making it a conference that like fans and stuff could go to, and they've done that for a few years now. And even, one of my friends over on the Switch Heads podcast, he had like a press badge. He was all ready to go this year. So I'm sorry for him that he can't go. But at the same time, like, what would he even have done there? Like
that's true.
I guess there would still be some developers and indies and stuff like that. But yeah, it's just like that's the way they went to try and keep the brand alive, and that they partnered with that other company. I can't remember the name of it. They do the Penny Arcade Expos and all that stuff like that. So they had like that stuff. So that's why I'm a bit surprised by like the timing of this, of like, okay, Ubisoft pulls out, and then that week they announced cancellation. Like, were they relying on Ubisoft's 100,000, 200,000, whatever it was, to put them in the green? Like, is that the fine line that changed it, or were they just like on the brink of making this decision, and Ubisoft was like, I don't know, I guess the catalyst that put it over there? Because I guess going into this year, you could have assumed, okay, Sony's not going to be there for sure. Maybe Xbox, maybe Nintendo still show up. But then, eventually they said they're not going to be there either. So more and more people were pulling out. And I guess at this point, maybe this is like the latest they could go where they can still get some of their money back on like conference space and I don't know, all stuff like that, in terms of they can at least recoup some money doing it this way. But it's like, man, what was the business model? How, was having the con where like fans go to and like you're getting ticket sales and stuff like that, was that not a sustainable thing on its own? Were you like completely reliant on these big money dumps from all these big publishers, or was it just like, okay, well, that's what we don't want E3 to be that. We want it to still be this big show, and without these people, it doesn't exist. So I'm a little curious there on just like the timing of this and when they decide to pull the trigger. What was like the last thing that set them over? Was it truly Ubisoft, or was that just kind of coincidence? Hard to say.
Yeah, it's tough. I feel like as they were doing that, I feel like they should have pulled the trigger a lot sooner on letting people like pay to go there, because I think that you could have brought down costs but I think what they were trying to do is they were going to try and get people to pay to go there and still get the same prices from the studio. But what they should have done is try and talk to the studios and developers, say, hey, we're going to charge you less, or not all, because we're making so much money. Because I feel like there's so many people. It was one which I feel like they got. Keeley is right where they got, and I'm not sure what Keeley allows as far as people in his shows. I feel like there are some audience members, but I feel like it is a lot of press. But E3 did always feel like this kind of the you and them. You can't be here unless you're the gaming journalist, stuff like that and everything. It's a prestige event, right? But then at the same time, once you did that, these people aren't paying, like they're here for their job and stuff like that. So you kind of pushed the audience too far that they can't do that. And then when you invited them in, all those big things were gone, and that's where, and I think it was just Ubisoft was just the last, was the domino that pushed all the other ones. I think it was Ubisoft, and then like even people like Sega say, oh, we're not going anymore. Like I think it was just everybody pulling out, and that's where I just think that I think they felt that doing a show or a whatever weekend would have been worse than canceling. Maybe even money-wise, but also just like look-wise, because there's nothing. The gaming industry, they're much like wrestling fans, that there's nothing they like more than to beat down on something, a meme on something. And this E3 would have been a meme machine. It would have been made fun of. It would have been like, there would have been lots of Keeley LOL meme. Like I think it was just like a lack of what do we do, and also just like showing the event. Like maybe there's a time where it's like, hey, you can cancel this, like the arena or whatever they're going to this amount of time and get this amount of money back. So it might have just been the point of just financially too, of is it just better that we cancel now and get what we can back? They're still going to be in a loss, but at least you get something back. It's like when we talk about video games, right? When there's some, like, look at Suicide Squad, this game that's been, it's screwed. It's like dead in the water, but you can't just kill it. You can't just not release it. So you're just going to release it as well as you can and get back what you can, right? But really, in a perfect world, you're like, well, let's figure this out. Let's pour more money into it. But there comes a point where you can only pour so much money into something before it bottoms out. And I think this was E3's bottoming out. And yeah. Hopefully they don't try next year. I think if they try next year, I hope there's a full method and it's like they have people locked down. What they should do is announce E3 and actually have all these people beforehand confirmed, contract signed, ready to go. Not this we're doing E3 and we're excited to get people to come, you know.
Yeah, like one thing I think that E3 has above Summer Game Fest, Game Awards, and all these different things is even Nintendo Directs is just like a deep nostalgia that people have for it. And so I don't know how you turn that nostalgia into a business plan, but I think there's probably something there. I don't know what it is, whether it's like they recreate a booth that happened in like 2005 or something like that.
Like they're doing Zellers right now?
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know what's going on with Zellers, but
it's in some store where there is like a little kiosk of Zellers. It's in one place, I think in like Saskatchewan or something, where it's like the Zellers thing. Like it's like Zellers is back, and it's like, I don't know, my podcast room of Zellers and stuff. Right. But that could work. But I feel like you gotta wait because I feel like everyone thought G4 was gonna work out because that had that nostalgia, right? And then that
well, that's what I mean. Like I feel like they. If their business plan, if they're doing this nostalgia thing mixed with like still doing the in-person show, but then they are still relying on the financials for Microsoft to give them $200,000, then no, that's a bad plan. Like they have to figure out a way to come back in a different way. They have to evolve into something different, and I think that goes beyond like just doing one showcase in June. Like maybe they just come back another way. That's the conversation for another day. But I think it's just like, in terms of what E3 has been in the past, that is, we can say, officially dead and buried, and they have to do something different. So we'll see if they try, but I think probably not. I think maybe the chances that someone buys that brand, that name, and then does something with it, but like I don't even think that value would be there anymore. Like and each year, each month, that value of that goes down too. So I don't know.
And my pitch always was, and I don't know if they ever were going to do it because they got the new people. And I don't think so. I think it's just more get people there to spend some money. But I always felt like, okay, if you don't have some of these bigger ones, what you should be trying to do is just sit down and think of like, what's some fun things you could do as like an event. I always said like, pick some popular games, do some tournaments, try and get some online personalities there, and make it like an exhibition sort of thing. Like, because like esports is big, and make it just like, hey, there's people you've never seen before. They're mixing up. Like, make it that it's not so much about the games now. It's about celebrating games and having fun with games. And you would still have like like the same way I look at Kind of Funny. They're doing a showcase now almost every year, right? And they're showing up like even that. It's like you can see some new stuff. Maybe there'll be a breakout game, but make it about like, oh, you just want to go there because gamers have a fun time there, like just that moment of E3. But I feel like they just got so worried about trying to get back to what they were, they missed that opportunity. But I always thought that was the route to go of like, okay, get fans in, then they can play these games, but also just do some fun activities. That idea of like this, why would you do this is the old management, but it's like, why would you do a celebrity basketball match when it's like, get these celebrity playing games, you know, like have like for the Mario game, find a way, and that's probably more expensive, but still like in the right time when E3 was running high, what they should have done is like, if Mario's out now right now, you have a session, and I know I can't remember, there's some interview, I don't know if it was a YouTube or whatnot, very smart, his interview time, what he did with the Mario Party or the Mario Cast, he didn't interview them, he played Mario Kart with them. And it's like, that's smart, and that's the stuff E3 should have been doing. It's like, don't get celebrities there to play basketball, like get them to play video games, like do like that's what you should be doing. Like have Jack Black versus so and so in a fun Smash match. It doesn't matter if it's bad or like that's what it should have been. Kind of even gaming personalities like Troy like use that community. But no, it's I think it's just the time has gone now, you know. And I think Keeley will kind of run game for a while because like you're talking about the money, Keeley doesn't really do that. He's not charging Sony. There's like I said, a agreement, a scratch my back, scratch your back, like he does with Kojima, right? Where he's going to promote his podcast and promote his whatever, some one-man show. He's going to have Kojima on 6 times to talk about, like, man, the world's very different since COVID. And it's like, why is he here? But you know why he's there? Because then when DS2 comes, Keighley gets that. So that's where it's like, it's smart, you know?
Yeah. There you go. That's E3. I don't know when the next time we'll be talking about it is. It might be a while, but
it may never be, right?
It might never be. This might be the last time that you hear about E3 on Geek First Podcast. Let's move into our last ad break here. We'll be right back, and then we're going to talk about Midnight Suns. Okay, we are back. I left this sequence to be at the end of the show because I feel like at this point, I don't know how much people are wanting to necessarily tune in to hear about like the third round of DLC for Midnight Suns. Like this game, obviously the sales not great. It feels like every weekend they're doing like a free weekend to get people to try this game out because when people play it, they like it. For example, Carl in our Discord chat, Patreon, good friend of ours over here. He was like, hey, is Midnight Suns any good? He doesn't really listen to the podcast these days. He's a busy guy. And me and you were like, yes, it's good. And he just reported back in the Discord today. He's like, this game's fucking great. Thank you for the recommendation. And so obviously it is a great game. And I'm glad that I'm glad that you are still playing it so we can keep talking about this thing. But here we are.
It's smart to have it at the last topic. It's
because some people, if you want to leave, I'm not offended. Thank you for joining us.
It's a passion project.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, Morbius is the third round of DLC here, joining the Midnight Suns. So 3rd of 4. We have one more with Storm. We'll see what kind of story is going on there. But yeah, so Morbius joins the crew here. There's once again 3 new story missions, full new character and all that stuff. So I guess what did you? I actually want to start with like the story of this one rather than talking about Morbius and the abilities. But what did you think of the story element of this?
I liked it because I feel like with Deadpool, it was very just comedic and stuff like that. Venom, I think, was just mostly about him and the Spider-Man tension. I like this that you got some kind of callbacks with him and Spider-Man as far as their lineage. You had this kind of frenemies thing with him and Blade going on in their history and stuff like that. I liked the idea. It's classic Michael Morbius. He's trying to work on a cure and work all this stuff, and the enemy vampires get this, things where they go in daylight. So I like that. Like that to me would sound like a Morbius and Marvel movie plot where it's like, they've created a cure or something where the vampires can go in daylight, and now Dracula's gone. And it's like, man. And I feel like the ties with the vampire, I'll see what happens with Storm, but I feel like there's a chance Morbius would have been a better way to end it, with the vampires being the enemies, the main enemies in this. But I liked the story. I think this actually had a bit more meat on the bone, definitely than Venom, and probably a bit more than Deadpool. So it's probably my favorite one, other than I think Deadpool's always very fun, of course, if he's written well. But I think it had a good showing, this one.
Yeah, I agree. I liked the story element of this. For me, the dynamic between Morbius and Blade was really fun, where of course they have like this I guess you could say tumultuous past, and they kind of hate each other, more so Blade hating Morbius like not really caring much about
Blade's
Blade.
ready to cut him down at any moment.
But then them coming together because they both have a lot of knowledge in what they're talking about here, and they kind of need to stop like the greater threat. Once again, who is Dracula is once again the boss here. So I really liked the story dynamic. And once again, like Spidey, him and Morbius don't have a ton of time together, but they get a little bit there. And then even once again, like it seems like every character in this game is like they have some dark creature inside of them that's like this hidden part of them. So it's like Hunter, that's like what's going on with her story. Like Magic has this element to it and all this stuff. Blade had it already, and so I like that Morbius is kind of more of that, but it like naturally creates good dialogue between Hunter and Morbius. I like their conversations together. I thought were pretty interesting, especially once again for me choosing all the dark options that I'm doing. I really like the kind of jabs that Hunter throws at Morbius. Some fun conversations there, so I'm all good with that. I think I had this same criticism with the Venom DLC, which is that, okay, the first round of DLC with Deadpool introduced a ton of stuff, right? There was like a new boss fight, there was all these new mechanics and these vampires and these nests and whatnot. And then with the Venom DLC, it was like kind of like just more of those mechanics, and then Dracula was a new fight. But then like mechanically, it was pretty much the same stuff that you got in the Deadpool one. And then by the time we're in Morbius here, it's like, okay, it's the same boss, it's all the same mechanics. Really, the only like new stuff is essentially just what Morbius has. So I guess in gameplay wise, it's once again this thing. I keep saying this over and over again. We're talking about Midnight Suns is like the minute-to-minute gameplay is so good, and I love the strategy that I'm having a ton of fun. But if I'm looking at it critically in terms of what's in this DLC, there's really nothing new here. Now, once again, all these DLCs, like it's released as one thing, right? So you kind of get the whole pack, and it's supposed to be this one continuous thing. But I guess I was slightly disappointed to not have even a new boss fight, not to have like a new mechanic, a new enemy type. It was a lot of the same in that way. And then I also felt like all the maps were like just kind of in Central Park, which we had already seen before too. So I was like, okay, we're kind of doing this again. So I guess I'm not loving the levels that we're given here necessarily in terms of the mechanics and the boss fight. How did that? Oh, you eventually, we were talking about this, how you were struggling with the boss fight, but how did that finally go? Did you eventually take him down?
I dropped a couple levels. I tried to take. I was playing the ultimate and I like the biggest one, and because that's been my goal. I think there's one time in the main campaign I did drop down, but then after that I was trying to, but just for time wise, because man, Dracula sucks. He's tough. He's just like he'll just attack you. Because I guess that's my thoughts too. Because last time we had played the Venom one, I actually didn't beat Dracula at that point. So my thoughts are just like, yeah, he's to me the toughest boss in the entire game. He has those multiple attacks. He has the one attack where when it just like the bats come at you and just slash you, just takes everything.
The one where he just literally hits all of your heroes. It's like, Jesus, now everyone's taking a big blow here.
He's leaving bleed everywhere too. It's just, and then his heal, it just sucks. Like in a good way, it just sucks. Like that always feels like a challenge. So it's on my bucket list at some point that, okay, when I do New Games Plus at some point, I'm going to come back and beat you one day, Dracula. But today was not that day. But yeah, I agree with you as far as the setting. I think it's one of those things where I always enjoy new stuff, but I think other than the story beats, now we're getting to me just replaying the game pretty much, right? And I think to your point is, even though we would have got this stuff eventually, I think they should have spaced out some of that new stuff, because we had like the vampire minions, we had the blood-sucking vampires, we had the nest, like you said. I feel like they should have, and even stuff like Dracula, I feel like they should have found some sort of way for a different sort of boss battle, even if it was maybe using, like, I don't know why they didn't do this, why they just didn't even make like Morbius a boss, and then when you would have beat him with Venom or something.
Which is, that's how Venom was,
Yeah, right? Yeah. So I feel like that would have been better. So I feel like all the stuff that made that first wave of DLC just be like, oh my goodness, it's fantastic. Deadpool, new, like, and even then, like you've mentioned, like a new yard upgrade, that didn't happen. So I feel like it's tough because they probably wanted to sell people on that DLC, right? Because you want to see that, and if the game was doing well or anybody, they wanted to see, look at all these new things in the DLC. So from a marketing perspective, I get it. From a gameplay perspective, I'm still enjoying the game. I still love the game, but it's that thing of, okay, I'm not really doing anything new other than just Morbius now, you know? So I agree with you as far as, and I'm interested what happens with the last boss, because it's not Doom, as we talked about. I don't think that's happening.
I don't think that's happening at this point.
I guess it was just sequel baiting. That's a big risk, but...
what's his name? Starts with an M that everyone's always memeing about.
Mephisto.
Yeah. Because he's kind of, he didn't actually appear in this Morbius thing, I don't think, but he appeared previously in the DLC. He was obviously in the main game, but you like never fought him explicitly.
Yeah, he's in the Venom one. Remember, he made a deal with Peter.
Yeah, exactly. So do you think he would be like the final boss of the DLC? Maybe
he could, because the way
you actually like fight him, you actually physically fight him. He has mechanics and all that.
It'd be good. I'd be disappointed if not, because I feel like the way it works before, we're like, hey, the Vampire Dracula stuff was Storm. That doesn't make sense. And if it was Doom, it's like, well, sure, Doom's a bad guy to everybody, but that doesn't make much sense. Mephisto would make sense because of the magic tie, and that's how you could do that, where because magic is an X-Men and Storm, I feel like that's how that to me tracks, you know? So,
it would seem like a bit of a weird pivot, I guess, from this DLC that has so far been like linear. You know, it is like all these DLC packs are one linear story going through. In terms of like Deadpool introducing the vampire stuff. So it would be weird if like, Storm was like, just like, I'm trying to think like, what would it be if it's not just more of this vampire? Because Dracula's still alive too. If he's the final boss, oh my God, I would be pretty disappointed. If
I'll be pretty disappointed with that, because even that point, just say, well, then bring another boss back from the game and make them vampire eyes or something, do something like that, right? So, I really hope not. Like, you know, hopefully Dracula's just because he's Dracula, he's just beaten and he's just going out there. But I don't know, because like I said, I thought I thought the tease of Doom was very odd, and then I thought the multiple mentions of him with the Deadpool DLC now in retrospective was very odd. So I really don't know what they're gonna do with this. I hope it's not Dracula, because one, I don't want to fight him again, but two, just that would be a very, even if it's same thing as Sin, I don't want Sin or Dracula. That would be very disappointing to me. But I could see it, and
yeah, because I mean, I guess if we look at it, like Deadpool really, as a character, had nothing to do with what was going on in that story. Like they tied him in, and he was like a merc that was working for this person who was like Sin was really too. So all this thing, but like Venom and then Morbius has actually made a lot more sense in the way that was connected. And so yeah, I'm really curious how Storm is going to be integrated into this storyline here. But even then, like they kind of saved the day, right? Like Morbius and Venom, or I guess sorry, it was Blade. Blade and Morbius kind of saved the day here. Where like yes, Dracula got away, but like they destroyed that antidote or whatever it was and whatnot. So yeah, I'm curious what the final story. I'm hoping that they are kind of holding back here, and like they held back some mechanics from this one and even a bit from Venom, and like are gonna go hard with this final DLC here as a way to really cap off the game. And it's looking unlikely that we'll get a sequel, so like hopefully a really nice conclusion for this thing. And I mean, I'm sure it'll have a post-credit scene that's like teasing something, of course, as every superhero thing does these days. But yeah, curious about that. But yeah, talking about, I guess, just Morbius more specifically, I think because I really like Venom as well, especially now that I've played more and more of him. But I think Morbius might be my favorite now of the DLC cast. I think Deadpool was a bit of a low point for both of us. So I'm really liking Morbius. I like his moveset. I think it's interesting he has a lot of chain moves. He's got like that stealth, which not many characters have. He has the ability to mark characters. And then his passive too, which kind of builds up whenever he plays cards. And then you put him into Bloodlust mode, which is like this, superpower mode where he does more damage. He applies bleed and it gives him armor. And as long as the armor stays up, he continues to stay in Bloodlust mode. It's something that I'm really enjoying. I think the passive was a bit boring where it just makes it so you only need to play 2 cards to get Bloodlust mode. So it's like, well, this is good, but it's not that exciting. But yeah, what's your kind of take on Morbius here?
Yeah, I wish I could give a different take, but mine's the same. I think he's my favorite DLC character. We're pretty similar on this game. I enjoy, I think like you said when we were talking about it on Discord, that it's nothing crazy, but I feel like it at least feels different enough where I feel like Deadpool's just kind of, okay, you got Deadpool for the character, you like some of the design stuff like that, but most of the stuff we see around Venom, there are some differences, but I feel like there is majority kind of feels, I won't say like a Hulk clone, but equivalent to, okay, he's a bigger guy that has these certain stun moves and stuff like that.
He feels like you're playing as a boss, which is obviously a great feeling.
Yeah, and I feel like Morbius kind of has that too. My favorite one is, because maybe I'm wrong, maybe Nico might have it because you play with her more than me, but other than her, I know Wanda, I love the idea of the taking an enemy and they attack another enemy, and I love the upgrade to that before it's like a minion and then you can make it anyone. So even in the final boss battle, I'm making Dracula attack people and stuff like that. I think the whatever conceal is really cool because it's a conceal, it's worth 2 heroism, and it attacks, like your next attack goes up to 50 plus. There's cards that feel very villain hero or like boss battle, like you said. So I enjoy them. I'm excited to play him more because he's definitely the one I play the least. I'm excited to play him more with more combinations and stuff like that because mostly all the missions have been him and Blade, which I did appreciate, even though I did use Hunter. I did appreciate in the final mission you didn't have to take Hunter.
Yeah, I really like that too. I put Nico in there actually. That was a nice little trifecta.
There you go. Yeah, and it's funny you said that because I've actually been playing with her a bit more lately because I've been upgrading her, and
my Hunter doesn't have heals, remember? So I got to use other people to get in there with the heals.
Yeah, so I'm really enjoying him, and I think he has a lot of cool costumes too. Like that, he nails costumes and designs.
The kind of classic one that's a little more over the top. His look is quite slender and like, kind of goofy looking, but I like it.
Good though. I don't want him to be like Captain, like all like Venom, Captain America, Deadpool. Like I feel like the last few characters are gone. Yeah, they're just like in your head. I
will say I feel like Morbius's animations are like just so boring. Like some of the characters, like everyone in the base game has like just great animations. I think Deadpool was one where
Oh,
it's like
yeah.
it's kind of uninteresting, and then Venom was like over the top. But like Morbius's are like not that. Like I don't
Just
really
like all
care.
claws,
If I could
yeah.
skip cutscene on him attacking people, I would, because like it's
Yeah.
pretty boring stuff there. I think the voice performance is solid. Is you know good enough. I'm liking all that stuff there. I officially hit the level cap in the DLC here, which is 25. Have you hit level 25 with anyone yet?
Yeah. I think it's.
You probably have more XP if you stayed on Ultimate the whole time, whereas
I
I've definitely
have.
played more of the game because I've done a lot more like achievement hunting and stuff. But if you're
I
on
think
Ultimate, you're getting a lot more XP than I am.
I think I got Cap and Strange there.
Nice.
So I think I got 2, but yeah, because I was spamming them for a little bit. But now Strange has kind of been on the back burner now because I've kind of Wanda's kind of become one of my mains and stuff like
Nice.
that. It's usually her and Cap and stuff like that. But yeah. The other thing I was gonna say about Morbius costumes, I just love his house gear. Like it's just like these leather pants. It's just like it's so it's
so funny.
It's funny. It works. I can't wait to put him in a bathing suit at some point. But yeah, again, another good character. He's somebody. What I can't wait for is because I'm the same thing as you, that I'm enjoying the game. I'm definitely, because other games are coming out and stuff, like I gotta play Prey and stuff, that I am at the point where I'm always enjoying more, but I am not necessarily ready to move on, but I'm ready to take a break, even though I wish there was always more coming and stuff like that, because that's what happens is I take a break, and then when I play this, then I start playing more than I have to, because I'll do that where I've played 2 hours more and I don't have to because I've done my portion for the review. But you just get in that loop of like,
Yes,
I want to get the coils, I want to see what does Morbius do, what's his updates do. So that's how I always feel it when I get away from my game, ready to take a break. But I'm very excited for this game when at some point, because I definitely will when I do the New Game Plus and I play through with everybody. And obviously there's some things that are different, but playing through with everybody, even just like I'm so excited that I get to play through with people's like friendships meter is already up. Like, so I'll like to play a game where I got Morbius from the start and just see, okay. And like I said, on my side, I got Hunter as a bright side character, so when I play around, he'll probably be a dark side. So I'm excited for in a couple years to sit down and be like, I'm going to trek through this game and kind of be a different experience again between my choices and the new characters I have. So, but I think Morbius is another good solid addition.
Yeah, I think one of the things that was pretty exciting for me was I just immediately, when I was seeing more of his moveset and, doing those coils, getting a couple more cards, I was immediately like, man, there's so many character combinations that would work so well with him, which I didn't really have that with Deadpool and Venom, where I think their movesets are pretty general and they'll work with pretty much anyone. But I was like, immediately there was some good synergies. Like obviously him and Blade, in terms of stacking bleed on characters, is a really good combination. Like he makes Blade even more powerful. But for me too was... specifically Captain Marvel, because one, she has taunt, so obviously the more you can taunt people, the more you can like keep your block on Morbius, right? By keep getting attacks off him. And then like Captain Marvel for her big power photon beam attack. One of mine is upgraded to a 50% chance to apply bleed to everyone it hits. So if that procs and it's like all these people, like 5 sometimes people at a time, get hit with bleed. So obviously that combines well with Morbius, so that's really nice. But then also just like anyone else with taunt. Right, so I guess like Captain America as well. Wolverine, because anyone who can get attacks off Morbius so he can stay in Bloodlust mode longer is a great synergy. So that was very exciting for me. That I'm like, okay, I really want to try out Captain Marvel, and like, oh, this is a great synergy, and like I still haven't tried him with Wolverine, but that could be a really fun combo. So that's a very exciting thing for me too. And man, I can't wait to see Storm's abilities with like changing weather and stuff.
She better not disappoint. It better not just be like lightning fingers. That's what I'm really
I hope
scared.
It's kind of like, you're changing the weather around you and it will affect like passive like bonuses and stuff like that. I hope it's pretty exciting, but looking forward to that.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good one to end off because that's what I've been looking forward to the most, just because I think she could. It does worry because she's last. I think there could be a sense of us coming on here and be a little disappointed because, like I said, I could easily see lightning fingers, a tornado, like some of the classic like Marvel Ultimate Alliance moves, and I hope they. And I'm fine with some of those, but just kind of like, what more can you go for? So.
Something cool and unique. Yeah, my last 2 points here. One is I mentioned this last time that the achievements in this game are broken. Like they just are not working in certain ways. Like the Deadpool ones, like for completing his campaign, like they just did not, activate on my console and stuff like that. And with this, they said that we've fixed the achievements, but you need to start a new game in order to like get them. So to get some of these achievements that would take you, like for me, I've put like 60, 70 hours into this game. I'd have to like do it again. So it's a minor thing. Not everyone cares about achievements, but for me, who was like, I'm actually pretty close to getting all the achievements, and now I'm very far away. It was like, that really sucks. That is the worst news ever. Yeah, we fixed achievements, but you got to restart the game. They're not going to activate. Man, that was like, I was a bit salty when I saw that, and then
That's a bummer.
it just sucks. And then lastly, so he doesn't have a yard like upgrade with Morbius, but you get like the lab upgrade. So he gets like this funny little booth like in the dungeon where it's just like a little table. It's so funny compared to like Strange and Tony, who have like that huge like forge and everything, and he just has this rinky-dink little table. But I really like the I guess new feature that comes with that, where you can like change like the attributes of your characters, so you can take away like your critical chance and give yourself like more AoE like range or whatever it is, and you can you essentially have to reduce one of your skills to up a different one, but your skills, if you reduce them, do not go into the negative. So if you have something at like 0, you can just reduce that one and then buff another one, and you don't actually lose anything. At least I'm pretty sure that's how it works. So just like paying extra credits to make your characters even stronger is really cool. It's just like a new form of progression in the game that's very easy to do and just takes credits. So I really like that. I thought it was pretty neat as a little upgrade there.
Yeah, I haven't tinkered around too much with that, but I'll have to, and that's just another thing that I love about this game, just the amount of choices and options you get. So
definitely. Anything else? I've said everything, all my pieces over here.
Nope, I'm excited for Storm. I imagine we should get that relatively soon because these DLCs have been dropping and stuff like that.
Every month, so we're on track for later in April.
Yeah, so I'm ready. I don't know what they'll time it with, but I'm ready for Storm. Hoping for a good send-off. Hoping for a non-Dracula Sin boss battle. Even Mephisto, I'll be happy with that. And I'm ready. It'll be sad. It'll be bittersweet because it'll be like we get that, but then it'll be our last content, our last new Midnight Suns content. So that's where there's always part of me of like, oh, I don't want it to come yet because it's just then it's over. But I'll be excited for it.
Yeah, I mean, to what you said earlier of like, okay, you finished the DLC and then you just played for another couple hours because that gameplay loop is so good. Like, it will be done, but yeah, I feel like this is a game I'll just boot up every once in a while and like do a couple of random 100%. General missions, whether I start a new game plus or just go in there to like scratch that itch and then peace out again and try it. Because like even like Deadpool, I haven't really used him that much since he like came out. So like there's still characters that I need to explore with. So yeah, we love this game. This game's great. If you have not bought it yet, go buy it. Support this game. We need that sequel right now. But thank you everyone for listening. We will be back next week for another episode of Sidequest. Go watch the Mario movie and check out our review, and we will see you again later. Bye-bye.